macros. Today, we got a special topic, but first, smash that subscribe button if this is your first time on the YouTube channel and you want more content like this so that you can incorporate the right nutritional protocols so you can start looking like you CrossFit, okay? Today's topic is going to be around the 4 worst nutritional protocols and dietary interventions if you're doing CrossFit 4 to 5 WODs per week and you're doing it consistently. You guys know that there have been some significant diets out there that have wrecked our metabolisms, that have wrecked our ability to continue to see results long-term, and leaves us with an inability to find a practical, sustainable solution to see results. Okay, I'm going to give a timeline of when these diets were discovered. I'm going to give you an understanding of why these diets were discovered. And then I'm going to go over why these diets are likely not to work for you if you're doing 4 to 5 WODs per week, if you want to lose body fat, build muscle, and crush your WODs, right? So first, I want to start way back in 1915. In 1915, this was right before World War I, about a decade before the Great Depression. And 2 people by the name of Folan and Dennis discovered what we know today to be fasting. Yes, you heard it, fasting. So back in 1915, Folan and Dennis discovered fasting. Fasting is you eliminating all ingestion of food for an extended period of time. It may include time-restricted feeding or other approaches like a 16-8 fast where you don't eat for 16 hours and you eat for 8, okay? This is practiced amongst many religions, including Ramadan, where you don't eat throughout the day and you're eating during later hours, amongst various other religions, even in the Christian religion where Friday you're eliminating certain foods, and in some cases fasting as well. So if we want to incorporate fasting, there needs to be a specific way that we do it. And it's very, very difficult for CrossFitters to do this correctly, and therefore, and usually why I don't recommend this. Now, if we look at the information, fasting has been practiced by many cultures in many religions since 1915, and even prior to that. People were actually doing things like this in BC timeframes, right? But Folan and Dennis discovered this in 1915, the early 20th century. Now, they recommended multiple short starvation sessions and did this under safe monitoring with people to see if it would help them with weight loss. Indeed, it does. If you're not eating the amount of calories that your body is consuming, you will lose weight. Notice that I use the word weight and not the word fat loss or fat. You're losing muscle during this time frame as well. And the reason is because you're dropping your calories to near zero. 0 is way less calories than we're burning, even at our basal metabolic rate. Our basal metabolic rate is the amount of calories we burn at rest, basically laying supine for a full 24 hours. So fasting can be a way to easily drop your calories to significantly low amounts so you can start to see weight loss. However, this is not ideal for someone doing CrossFit. The reason? CrossFitters actually need energy to put intention behind their WODs. This includes strength training, all of the AMRAPs and EMOMs, and everything that we do as we go into our box almost nearly on a daily basis. And so if you're fasting, you're likely not to give your body the fuel that it needs, which, of course, we know will leave us injured, right? Now, incorporating fasting in this way is not a good idea also because we're going to be losing muscle mass. As we lose muscle mass, our basal metabolic rate and metabolism goes down. Makes it even harder to lose weight in the future, especially fat loss in the future when our muscle mass drops. Muscle mass is the organ of longevity, and we need to preserve it as much as possible. And so not getting in the right quantities of food, and especially protein, prohibit our ability to recover and our ability to continue to keep and preserve muscle mass as well as grow it. And so in the 1960s, the medical community renewed interest in intermittent fasting as a way to help people lose weight that are very, very obese, right? That have a medical condition of obesity in which they are overweight, and their detriment of them staying where they are right now is way greater than them partaking in a fasting-like approach. Okay. So Folin and Dennis discovered this in 1915, and I would not recommend this for CrossFitters in any way, especially intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding in any form, because it's very hard to get in the right quantities of food and get in the right quantities of protein to make sure that we don't get injured and we preserve the muscle mass that we have. Okay. Now, let's fast forward a few years into 1921. In 1921, Woodyard and Wilder discovered the ketogenic diet. Now, the ketogenic diet relies on heavily incorporating fats, 70 and upwards of 90% of fat as the main macronutrient that you consume. So protein, very little, and carbs next to none, less than 5%. This puts your body into a state called ketosis, where we're primarily using fat as a fuel source instead of carbohydrates. Okay. Now, this is also not ideal for CrossFitters. Why? This is because our primary best fuel source for fueling our WODs is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are going to be our way of actually consuming enough to feel satiated, but then also digest carbohydrates, process into the bloodstream, and eventually turn into glycogen. Glycogen is carbohydrates stored in the muscle. These carbohydrates stored in the muscle are the first thing to go and be utilized for the energy for our WODs. So incorporating carbohydrates is extremely important, and in the right way and in the right amount around your workouts to make sure that you're fueling properly. Now, you may wonder, why did Woodyard and Wilder discover the ketogenic diet in 1921 if it's not ideal for fat loss, or especially not for CrossFitters? CrossFit wasn't around then, right? So why did they discover this? They discovered this for the treatment of epilepsy. And this goes back to 500 BC. Epileptic seizures and other variables, as well as things that people went through that have epilepsy, some of those symptoms are treated using a primarily fat-based diet, primarily 70 to 90%, very much like what the ketogenic diet is comprised of. And so this discovery was for people that have epilepsy, right? There's a lot of research dictating that it does work and it does support these people. However, there's less research showing the sustainability and effectiveness of a ketogenic diet long-term, especially for those that are doing 4 to 5 watts per week and that actually need carbohydrates to fuel properly and hit things intensely in their workouts. So it was developed in 1921 by Woodyard and Russell. It was developed for the treatment of epilepsy, and it basically eliminates almost all carbohydrates and protein, right? And therefore, using the body breaks down fat as energy instead of anything else. Avoid the ketogenic diet if you're doing 4 to 5 watts per week, regardless of your goal. It could be fat loss or building muscle or any of that. And remember, when we fast and we don't have carbohydrates and they get depleted, our body actually starts to become, puts us in ketosis. It's almost like a ketogenic diet by not eating. So both of these diets are effectively horrible when it comes to doing 4 to 5 watts per week. So avoid them at all costs. All right. Now let's move past a lot of the part of the century and into the 1970s. The 1970s, a diet was coined, the name paleo, for how we may have eaten during the Paleolithic period. Now, this was discovered by Walter Voigtland, and this diet was discovered in the 1970s primarily because Walter was looking to help his patients with digestive issues, and therefore eliminated a lot of food to help incorporate and improve overall digestion for the patients that he was working with. This diet was not developed because he wanted to help people lose weight or he wanted to help people build muscle or any of those different things. What he did find is that when he went back to the roots of what the majority of our diet should be composed of, which is what the CrossFit methodology recommends, which is little starch, no sugar, nuts and seeds, vegetables, lean meats. These things incorporated should be the bulk of our diet. And so developing the paleo diet was a way to help some of his patients improve their overall digestive system and process foods better, right? And so he believed that a more primitive diet that included plenty of fruit and non-starchy vegetables and no added salt or sugar was the right diet for humans, especially if you're focused on digestive or have digestive issues. Now, why is this diet not good for CrossFitters? And why does the CrossFit methodology continue to push this type of approach on people doing 4 to 5 watts per week? Is the diet overall healthy? Yes, it's a great way to incorporate a lot of vegetables and fruits and lean meats into your diet, which you should be incorporating. Does that mean we need to have no sugar? Does that mean we need to eliminate rice and eliminate yogurt and eliminate dairy and legumes in order to see those same results? Absolutely not. And in fact, paleo is not sustainable. And it's been shown in several studies in the literature that as we restrict foods, as paleo does, especially with limited carbohydrate sources that the Paleolithic diet neglects, we are likely to binge and overconsume those foods when given the opportunity. And the cycle goes like this. You restrict those certain foods, you binge those certain foods, you get guilty, and then you repeat. And this cycle continues until you decide, you know what, I'm going to stop restricting myself from incorporating these foods. And so instead, incorporate foods in moderation that are not as nutrient dense as foods that are in the Paleolithic diet. And even incorporate rice and breads, especially if you don't have intolerances or sensitivities to these foods. There's a lot of good pre and probiotics in dairy and yogurt products. These things should be incorporated if you enjoy them. So don't be afraid to do so. Now, avoid the Paleolithic diet at all costs. There's not a lot of research showing that it's ideal for fat loss or ideal for you if you're doing 4 to 5 watts per week, especially based on the limited carbohydrate sources that are available under a strict paleo diet. Okay, the CrossFit methodology has this wrong. They know it. They'll continue to double down, which is totally fine, which is why people like me are out here to give you the real facts in terms of what you need to incorporate to reach the results that you want, right? Okay, so that's the third diet in the 1970s. Now, the last, we're going to fast forward another 30 years into 2005, about 20 years ago now. In 2005, If It Fits Your Macros, or IIFYM, was developed. And it was developed by someone named Anthony Colliver. Anthony Colliver developed If It Fits Your Macros as a flexible way of focusing on counting macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, okay? And doing it in a systematic way where you track all of these foods regularly and daily. Doing this allows you to understand your total caloric intake relative to the amount of calories that you're burning. It's a very thermodynamic based approach, and in principle will work because the amount of calories that you're burning is very different. And it should be less if you're trying to lose weight than the calories that you're burning versus what you're consuming. And so if it fits your macros from a scientific perspective and the laws of thermodynamics pointed out by Sir Isaac Newton himself are sound. We cannot debate this. This is true. Now, the issue with If It Fits Your Macros is that there are no guidelines in terms of the food quality. So it's on the completely opposite end of the spectrum than paleo, where paleo restricts certain foods. If It Fits Your Macros says you can have anything. This is one pitfall if It Fits Your Macros diet. And the reason is because we can't just simply have low nutrient dense, low quality foods if we're planning to fuel properly for our WODs, lose body fat, and build muscle, right? Now, the other thing that is, as you guys know, and probably why you're watching my YouTube channel, is If It Fits Your Macros may work from a scientific perspective, but it's not very practical long-term to incorporate into your life. Now, the reason is because tracking every morsel of food has us really obsessed about every single thing that we're eating on a daily basis. And with that, we need to enjoy our life, not miss out on social events, and feel the restriction of everything we're eating all the time. And so in my personal opinion, If It Fits Your Macros is not a good diet or approach for CrossFitters because it's not meant to be used forever. If It Fits Your Macros and tracking things in MyFitnessPal is a short-term tool to help you build food awareness and help build principles and understandings around the protein, carbs, and fat that are in different foods that you enjoy, right? Now, if we're tracking every single gram of food for the rest of our life, which is impossible, we're likely going to eventually experience some sort of burnout. That burnout gets to a place where we're feeling like we need to obsess about our food. We have this all or nothing mentality when we're tracking. If we don't hit the grams perfect, we're a failure. And we may restrict ourselves from going out to eat and doing other things that we enjoy in life because we need to hit our macros. Okay. And so instead, there are a lot of other things that you can do out there, understanding your portion sizes and getting the right fuel you need as somebody doing 4 to 5 WODs per week and doing CrossFit consistently if you want to lose body fat, build muscle, and crush your WODs, right? So this is what we need to be focused on instead. Here at CBG, we actually help clients develop blueprints. These blueprints are based on your life. What time you wake up, go to sleep, work out, how many meals and snacks can you have throughout the day, all things that we'll learn about through our relationship-based coaching system where we do video calls with you weekly, where you have 24/7 tech support and everything else. Now we're going to take that information, we're going to take all of the calories and macros that we need, which my team has calculated through our CrossFit nutrition calculators, and put it into your blueprints, fit to your lifestyle, your goals. And now we're actually developing and building habits based off of the life that you currently live instead of randomly playing Tetris in MyFitnessPal. Right? If you're interested in working with me and my team, or you want to find out if we can even help you, you can go ahead, click the link in the bio or inside the description below on this YouTube video, and you'll see a link to book a call. And that call is going to help me better understand if we can help you. And the call is entirely free to see if we can help you lose body fat, build muscle, and crush your WODs without tracking macros. So there have been very poor diets described and developed over the years for different intentions, but those diets were not developed for CrossFitters. Your goals are unique, and you need to figure out what works best for you. And an individualized approach is always going to be the best way and the most efficient way for you to see those goals. And so if you want to book a call, go ahead, click the link below. And I'll see you guys in the next YouTube video. Click that subscribe button if you found this helpful. Send it to your friends, and I'll see you next time.